Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so I have Angela Crossin on the line, and she's founder and member over at Crossin Law Offices. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, and I'm excited to get into today's topic. So Business Law 101, this is going to be fun. But before we get into that, I do want to talk a little bit more about what you're doing over at Crossin Law Offices. Tell us a little bit more about your practice, please.
Sure. So it's a solo practice, started back in 2004. At the time, I was teaching full-time at Purdue, one of their satellite campuses, and I was teaching business law, employment law, all those courses. So my focus in my practice has been about 50% on business law and the other 50% on estate planning, which, as you know, Adam, ties in because business owners need a succession plan. And when a business owner dies, we need to know how to process all of that too. So right now, this was right because I am in the mode transforming more to a business consultant and taking the legal training and education a different route.
So at the end of this, I'm going to give you the opportunity to leave website or contact or however somebody should connect with you. But I want to make sure the right individuals and or companies connect. What are typically the right types of fit for your practice in terms of clients?
Sure. So primarily on the business side, it would be small business owners, startups, some that are experiencing hiccups. I do a lot of work with not-for-profits as well, and I know you know this too, that not-for-profits don't realize that they need to run like a business. They kind of shy away from it, but there's absolutely a need to be better at understanding the business practice side so that they can raise the dollars to be successful for their constituents. So those are kind of the two primary areas I work in on the business side. Again, like I said, on the estate planning side for businesses, it would be succession planning.
That's awesome. Let's just dive right into today's topic. So Business Law 101. Where do you want to start with this one?
Sure. So as I told you, I had a few points I wanted to get across as an educator. I have to make sure you guys get all this information in. And one of the first points I was really wanting to hone in is think big and act small. And that's one thing that I've seen being a business lawyer, that a lot of people, especially small startups, they jump in, they think if they order business cards on a Vistaprint and they throw up a website and they get a friend to design a logo, that's all there is to it. Unfortunately, I see a lot of people who don't entize. They think being a sole proprietor is perfectly fine. And so all of those concerns have really driven me into the field of business law, which I'm incredibly passionate about. My grandfather was a small business owner. He owned a local grocery store, and I think a lot of this stems from that. But thinking big, that you need to have all your policies and procedures and your social media in play like you are a big company. But what a lot of companies miss the mark on, and some of your prior podcast attendees have hit this, they forget about the relationship. They forget about the communication. That aspect is huge. So when you act small, hopefully you don't forget that in those relationships, especially right now in the COVID era, with so many employees stressing out of their own spouse, losing jobs and getting COVID and all of this, having that communication and those relationships is critical.
So why do you feel that sometimes there's this breakdown there? Because I don't think people do this intentionally. I mean, nobody's listening to this or starts that business and they're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna wing it. Like, they want to succeed, they want to do things right. Where do you think that? I mean, I know it's going to change from person to person, right? But in general, what have you found are what was one of the reasons or themes of why people kind of neglect this part of things?
I think their passion supersedes the rational side. You want to know the truth. And it's a good thing. I mean, you want that passion to drive it, obviously. But I think they get into it. They think those few first steps are enough. And then, as you know, sometimes you get in and things start going very fast and you don't have time to catch up with the proper implementation of an LLC or an S corporation. Maybe your intellectual property, which I just started delving into that and did a very successful, thankfully, appeal to the trademark office for a client. And, that's worth so much right there. I mean, our country has a constitutional aspect regarding intellectual property. So it's of foremost important, but important, but a lot of people forget that. And it means that somebody steals your content on your website. They mimic your content and your material and drive people to them versus, the trademark dilution versus your website. So sometimes I think that the passion supersedes to get back to that, and those really important details get left aside.
That's awesome. Let's get to point number 2.
Yeah. So just because of the era that we're in, I think it's a really good time to do an internal audit of your business practices and your policies and make sure that you have crisis management policies and procedures in place. And ironically, Adam, just before we got on the phone, I got a letter. I'm on a board here of a Parks and Rec Foundation, and they sent a letter to all of us detailing the steps that they've taken to protect us as community members, the importance of mental health and all of that. So I think right now, business owner can drill down. They can look at, do I have a policy in place? Instead of being reactive, being proactive, now is the time to do all that. I'm looking at, for example, my cousin, I'm going to use her as an example. She founded CJ Chemicals, and it's a chemical distribution company. And she was back in 2018 in California. She was awarded the 24th fastest growing woman-owned business award. And what she did recently is, prior to the situation, COVID, she worked on, she rather warehouse, stored, shipped, and imported 350 different chemicals. Well, this is where I think we as businesses can drill down now. She retooled. They effectively they shifted production, and they started making, no surprise, hand sanitizer. And they did really well on Amazon. So I think now we're in this period of reflection, and there is a lot of crazy stuff going on around us, and businesses can really drill down and look at, hey, while I have this time on my hands, let's be proactive. So the next crisis that comes up, that we're nimble and we're able to address the crisis head on.
No, I love it. I mean, it makes so much sense, and during this whole time, it's been really good to see people like I believe such your cousin, kind of pivot and get different things done and fill these needs and gaps. Because I tell people all the time, I'm like, well, if we think about the fundamental thing that we're all doing in business, whatever your business is, whatever your product is, you're trying to add value to other people, and then your cousins obviously managed to do that. So that's awesome. Let's get to point number 3. What's that?
Sure. Point number 3 is, and this is something that I try to practice in the organization that I oversee, Business Women United Network, and that is holistic entrepreneurship. So the importance of keeping your mind, body, spirit, and business in balance, and obviously now is the right time to be doing that. But mental health is critical right now. It's critical anytime, and the mental health of your employees, really your stakeholders that you work with. And so I think that there really isn't a separation between all of that. As I deem it, being a holistic entrepreneur means there's no separation between your mind, your body, and your spirit and your work. It's essentially a way of life that lends to serving in whatever capacity you're living in that very moment. So, you can improve, we know this, productivity and engagement when you're physically fit, when you're mentally healthy. It's a trickle-down effect from the top down, tone at the top, the cultural side of things. So some companies are doing this really well right now. They're attending to the mental health of their employees and giving them, even though it seems like we're in a break period, they're giving them time off from the 24/7 routine that we all seem to be under, where we can't shut off from our emails and all the other forms of media coming at us.
No, that's awesome. And I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing now, helping business owners more and more with your practice. So that being said, I mean, we've gone over some business 101 law points today. What do you feel? And I'm just kind of not asking you to have your crystal ball, by the way. So this isn't a loaded question. I just want your opinion. So what do you think is kind of the next step in terms of a lot of these businesses that are kind of working through some challenges? They're listening to your episode right now. Maybe they're looking and they have maybe point 1's pretty good, maybe point 2, maybe point 3. They're off a little. I mean, what's the next step? What should somebody that's digesting this content right now be thinking as they kind of reflect back on listening to some of the tips that you gave today?
Sure. So I would say the first step would be look at your policies and your procedures. One thing I'm working on with the church I attend, we're doing a reopening. I'm on a reopening committee. So we're looking at the legalities. We're looking at, obviously the mental health and all of that in terms of, and doing our own audit, looking at what we have in place, what we need to have in place. I think that's step 1. simply because if it's not COVID, it's going to be something else. And I just feel that crisis management is critical to a business. So that's the first step I would take. And there are many great resources online. If you can't afford to have a consultant, there are many great resources available online, but that's the first step I would take.
That's awesome. So Angela, that being said, been awesome having you on the show today. I love the tips, love the points you gave in today's lesson. If somebody's listening to this though, and they want more information on Crossin Law offices, what's the best way for them to connect with you and team?
Sure. So I have a website. I have a Facebook presence and a website, and I'm on LinkedIn. My website is Crossin Law Offices, that's plural, LLC.com. And my email, it's long, but it's acrossin@CrossinLawOfficesLLC.com. And you can find me under Angela Crossin on LinkedIn. And like I said, I do have a presence at the Crossin Law Offices on Facebook and the other social media, Twitter, et cetera.
Fantastic. Well, Angela, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and all the great stuff you're doing over at Crossin Law Offices. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of it.
Adam.
If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give us a subscribe there and leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of things and projects that you're working on. And Angela, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again for coming on the show.